You know that feeling when you have this incredible, game-changing idea, but you try to fit it into an old, rigid system that just can't handle it? Well, that explosive tension, that clash between the new and the old, that is exactly what we're diving into today, right in the thick of Luke chapter 6. So just before this chapter, Jesus gives us the key metaphor for his entire mission. He says his message of grace and mercy and this radical new way of life is like new wine. It's alive, it's bubbling, it's expanding. But then he gives a warning. You can't pour this stuff into old wineskins, into brittle, inflexible religious systems. Why? Because the wine will burst the skins and you lose everything. Well, Luke chapter 6 is basically a live demonstration of what happens when that new wine starts to ferment. And boy, does the pressure build fast. It all comes to a head over one of the most sacred pillars of Jewish life, the Sabbath. This is where those old wineskins are about to be tested to their absolute breaking point. The whole conflict blows up over two incidents that, to us, might sound kind of minor. First, Jesus' disciples are hungry, so they pluck some heads of grain to eat while they're walking through a field. Second, Jesus is in the synagogue, sees a man with a withered hand, and heals him. Now, to you and me, that sounds great, but to the religious leaders of the day, this was a full-blown crisis. Okay, now let's be fair to the Pharisees for a second. This wasn't just them being nitpicky. For them, the Sabbath was, well, it was everything. It was the sacred sign of their covenant with God himself. It was a weekly reminder of creation and of their rescue from slavery in Egypt. Seriously, for them, violating the Sabbath wasn't just breaking a rule. It was a betrayal that they believed could threaten the very existence of their nation. It was a matter of life and death. So what you've got here are two worldviews just colliding head-on. On one side, the Pharisees see the Sabbath as a set of strict rules and prohibitions. It's a boundary marker that defines who's in and who's out. But Jesus' new wine, it redefines the Sabbath completely, as a gift for people to flourish, a day where mercy and healing for actual human beings always, always comes before rigid ritual. Which, of course, leads to the big question. Who actually gets to say what this holy day is all about? Is it the people who have guarded the traditions for centuries, or is it someone else? Well, Jesus is about to answer that question with a claim so bold, it's going to completely shatter their world. And there it is. He just drops it. The Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. Now listen closely. This is not Jesus saying, hey guys, I have a different opinion. No, this is a claim of absolute divine authority. And the key to understanding just how explosive this was is in that title, Son of Man. Yeah, this was not some humble, self-deprecating title. Jesus was tapping right into a vision from the prophet Daniel, where this figure, this one like a son of man, comes before God, the Ancient of Days, and is given an everlasting kingdom over all peoples and nations. So by fusing that exalted figure with the title Lord, the very name for God, Jesus is making a mind-bending, earth-shattering claim. He's saying, I am the one from whom the Sabbath gets its meaning. He's recentering the whole thing around himself. And you can almost hear the old wineskins start to rip. The text says the Pharisees are filled with fury. They immediately start plotting what to do with him. Their entire legalistic framework, their brittle, rigid system just bursts wide open when it's confronted with the expanding, effervescent power of this new wine of mercy. Okay, so if that's the conflict, what is this new wine actually like? What's its flavor? Well, it tastes like a kingdom that is completely 100% upside down from everything the world expects. Jesus lays it all out in what we call the Sermon on the Plain. He starts talking about who's blessed, but it's not who anyone would expect. He says, blessed are you who are poor, you who are hungry, you who weep. And then he flips it and says, woe to you who are rich, who are well-fed, who laugh now. This isn't just a social commentary. This is a total inversion of values. He's saying God's favor, this new wine, rests with the broken and the marginalized. And then he pours out the strongest, most potent vintage he has. Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. You have to remember, for people living under brutal Roman occupation, this was almost unthinkable. This teaching completely shatters the old wineskin of an eye for an eye justice. It demands a radical grace that looks a lot less like human revenge and a lot more like God himself. Which, of course, brings up a massive question. If this wine is so powerful, so world-altering, what kind of person, what kind of wineskin can possibly hold it without just completely falling apart? Jesus makes it so clear. This isn't about just trying harder or changing your behavior on the outside. It's about a deep, fundamental transformation of the heart.
He says that what you do, the fruit you produce, is just an overflow of what's already going on inside. To become a new wineskin, you literally need a new heart. So how do you get there? Well, drawing on the wisdom of Psalm 1, the path to getting this new heart involves 3 key actions. First, to delight in God's ways, not just put up with them, but find real joy in them. Second, to meditate on His Word, to chew on it, to let it soak in and change how you think. And finally, to yield, to let the fruit of that new inner life actually grow.
And this picture says it all. A new wineskin, a transformed heart, isn't brittle and dry. It's alive, it's flexible. It's like a healthy tree planted right by a stream of water. It's constantly nourished so it can actually produce the kind of good fruit, mercy, love for enemies, compassion, that Jesus is talking about.
So we've seen the conflict, we've tasted the new wine, and we know what it takes to become a new wineskin. Jesus ends this incredible chapter by bringing it all down to a final verdict, a final choice.
And He makes this crystal clear: it is not enough to just listen to these teachings. It's not enough to admire them or think they're interesting ideas. This new wine isn't for tasting, it's for drinking. It demands a response. It requires you to do something.
He wraps up with a story about 2 builders. One guy hears everything Jesus says, nods along, and then just goes on with his life. The other guy hears the exact same words, but then he goes and puts them into practice, building his life on them. The process is simple, but it's profound. You hear the words, you act on them, and by doing that, you build a life that's on an unshakable foundation, a life that can handle any storm that comes.
And so, this ancient chapter leaves us with a very modern, very personal question. The new wine of Jesus' upside-down kingdom has been poured out. The question for us is, what's our response? Is our life a brittle, old wineskin, trying to resist this change? Or is it a solid house, being built day by day on the rock of not just hearing, but actually doing what He says?